Look at that mountain. Millions of people take this exact photo every single year, mostly because it looks like a postcard. But the river valley that we're looking down in right now isn't just a scenic backdrop. It's more like a loaded gun. If Mount Hood ever wakes up, it's not going to kill the towns below with a Mount St. Helens style ash cloud or lava flow. No, this valley below is going to be filled with a 50-mile-per-hour boiling wall of liquid concrete. So why is Mount Hood Oregon's ticking time bomb? There's only one way to find out, and that means we have to go to the mountain itself. One thing you're going to notice, the mountain looks incredibly tiny. That's not actually the case. The mountain is very close, but because of the limitations of my camera, it looks a whole lot smaller than it is. I've made it to Zigzag, which is one of the tiny towns outside of Mount Hood. In fact, it's actually kind of at the beginning of Mount Hood National Forest. So we're not quite at the mountain yet, but I needed to stop at the ranger station to get a pass. This brings me to, well, the missing elephant in the room. And sorry, Alexa, I don't mean to call you an elephant.
What did he say?
If you didn't notice, I am doing this episode solo, and it's because Alexa's down in California visiting some family, which means I got you guys all to myself. Got the Northwest Forest Pass. Now, if you come to Mount Hood and you have a National Parks Pass, you're gonna be able to go to a lot of places with that. But one of the places that I'm going today, which is Trillium Lake, which you'll see later, and it's very beautiful, does not take that. It only takes this because it's run by, apparently it's a third-party concessionaire. I'm not sure what that is. Only 30 bucks for a year, so easy peasy. Let's go. One of the things to know if you ever do make the drive up to Mount Hood is that you're just gonna be winding around these bends, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's the mountain. Okay, I've made it up to Timberline Lodge, which is just about as far up as I'm going to get. If you want, you can climb to the top of Mount Hood. From what I've heard, it is actually one of the more technically difficult climbs in the world. A lot of people do it. I'm not gonna do it. Certainly not for this episode. Wow, she is a beautiful mountain. Now, as usual, before we can truly understand the catastrophic geographic footprint of an eruption of Mount Hood, we have to look at where exactly this sleeping giant sits on a map, because that part is key to why this mountain is going to be so incredibly destructive. So Mount Hood, also sometimes referred to as Y East, is the crown jewel of the Oregon Cascade Mountain Range. It's a stratovolcano that sits roughly 50 miles east of Portland, Oregon. And at 11,240 feet tall, it's not just the tallest peak in the state. It's one of the most prominent peaks in the entire country. And it's this exact location that makes it both breathtakingly beautiful and incredibly dangerous. You see, Mount Hood doesn't exist in isolation. It's practically in the backyard of the Portland metropolitan area, a region that's home to over 2.5 million people. On a clear day, the mountain appears so close that it's almost like you can touch out and reach it. But it's not just the cities that are in its crosshairs. Mount Hood is the topographical centerpiece of the Mount Hood National Forest, and this means it's draped in 12 named glaciers. Crucially, for our eruption scenario, its slopes are the birthplace of multiple major river systems. The Sandy River, the Hood River, and the White River all carve their way down the mountain's flanks, acting as direct downhill mountain highways that connect these high altitude glaciers straight to the Columbia and Willamette rivers down below. And it's these glaciers and rivers that are key to our story today. But before we get to that, I want to get back down the mountain just a little bit. And before we do that, I want to show you guys around the mountain a little bit more. So, you guys up for a hike a little bit? Because we're going to go up higher. Also, one of the really cool things, if you do come up to Timberline, which you should if you're ever in Oregon, is that on a clear day, you can see Mount Jefferson, and I think that's even Broken Top way back there, down in the middle of the state. Mount Jefferson being another really prominent stratovolcano, which maybe we'll cover someday. Oh, the other thing I'll mention, if you don't want to climb Mount Hood, you don't summit it, but you do want to just like hike around it and especially backpack around it, there is a really amazing Timberline trail, which will take you all the way around it. It's intense, but it's doable. For those of you who are big backpackers, I strongly recommend it. Okay, really quietly. I found what looks to be, from this distance, it might be a pika. We're gonna see if we can't get a little closer. I gotta say, I wasn't expecting to see animals this high up because there's simply not that much vegetation. Okay, he's definitely not a pika. I'm actually not really sure what he is. He is a rodent of some sort. I'll tell you everything about all of these rocks here, but who is this little guy? He's very cute. I will say that. We're just gonna leave him be. If you happen to know what animal that is, leave a comment. I'd love to hear about it. Of course, I'll probably do my own research as well. I don't think I could ask for a better spot to talk about the one key point of this entire story, and that is those glaciers right up on the top of Mount Hood. Obviously, there's one very specific reason why Mount Hood's eruption is going to be so incredibly dangerous and damaging. In fact, this volcano right here has been classified by the USGS as a very high threat volcano. But here's the thing, the magma that will spew out of this volcano is not the primary threat. The weapon is actually that ice that sits at the top. It seems counterintuitive, but you just have to trust me on this one. This is a well-known, highly documented phenomenon known as a lahar. Okay, so here's how it works. When magma pushes up and starts the eruption process, it's going to superheat the mountain. Lava, after all, is extremely, very hot. And what this is going to do is it's going to instantly melt all of that glacier water. And when glaciers melt, they turn into, well, water and steam. So all of a sudden, millions upon millions of gallons of water will rush down this exact hill, mixing with volcanic ash, all of the boulders you see around me, trees, logs, and basically everything else in its path, including Timberline Lodge right here. That exact thing, that is the lahar. It is a catastrophic debris flow, but it doesn't act like a flood slowly rising up from below. Instead, it acts like wet, flowing concrete that crushes and buries absolutely everything in its path. As it turns out, those same river valleys that we talked about earlier make for the perfect lahar superhighways. But here's the thing. We don't actually need to imagine or wonder what this looks and feels like, because this has actually been documented right here on Mount Hood. But to tell that story, well, we actually finally need to head down off the mountain, which is such a shame because I just love it up here so much. But story waits for nobody. Oh, there is one thing I want to do before I leave, and that is actually go touch the snow. So, whew. As you can imagine, it is quite cold, but I figured, when else are you gonna touch actual glacier snow? I'm actually kind of surprised that there's still so much of it up here and that people are still skiing. All right, there you go. Hiking up here around Mount Hood and through the Mount Hood National Forest, you definitely realize just how fragile and powerful nature really is. But the fact that this area never became a national park means that its protection is different, relying more on local people like me who truly care about places like Mount Hood. As an individual, it's actually kind of hard to figure out, how can I help? How do we protect a forest? How do we save a species in Mount Hood? And that's exactly why I've joined and partnered with Planet Wild. Planet Wild is a community-based nature protection organization. Think of it like crowdfunding, but for nature, for the geography. And I'm proud to be one of their over 25,000 members who every month fund a new carefully selected mission to bring back endangered species, protect our oceans, or restore forests like the Mount Hood National Forest. But what I love most is the transparency of it all. They document all of their missions right here on YouTube, so you and me can see what our contributions do every single month. In one of my very favorite missions of theirs, they went to Tanzania to turn a barren, dry desert into a green area using ancient methods and underground forests. You literally see the impact with your own eyes. So if you want to join a growing community that makes a difference in nature, then join Planet Wild today. You can give whatever amount feels right to you. Big or small, every single dollar counts. The first 100 people who sign up using my code, GeoLex7, will get their very first month paid for by me. Just scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description. There's no catch and you can cancel anytime. And if you want to see Planet Wild in action right now, check out that Tanzania underground forest mission, linked in the description below. Now, let's get back to exploring the history and destructive nature of Mount Hood. before I leave, just some fun trivia for you guys. For those of you who are film buffs, you've ever seen the movie The Shining? This is the lodge, the exterior of it, that made up that haunted, horrible hotel of sorts. It is not the interior, but it is the exterior. If you come up here, come to Mount Hood, definitely make your way up Timberline. It can get quite busy, but it's otherwise gonna be very beautiful. You can grab a drink inside, hang out, and just enjoy the views if you want, or go skiing. With that, I do actually need to head down off the mountain. It's just so hard because I love it so much. Here we go. I've come all the way down from the mountain to this river, the Sandy River, because this is the highway that those Lahars are going to use to bulldoze everything. When we last left Mount Hood, we were talking about the Lahars and where they would come from and how they would get down here, which is by this river. And we know this because, well, it's happened before. In the 1780s, Mount Hood entered what we now call the Old Maid Eruption series, which lasted until about 1810. And during this period, a massive Lahar roared right down this river, straight on down, and continuing down to the Portland metropolitan area. And it would snap all of these old growth forest trees in half, pick up all of these boulders and rocks, including the ones up from on the mountain, and just carry it on down. So just imagine entire forests like the one I'm in right now, buried under 30 feet of volcanic mud and rock. And we know this because just 2 decades later, in 1805, Lewis and Clark floated past the mouth of some of these rivers. And when they did, they didn't see a pristine mountain stream. They saw a waterway so choked with volcanic debris that they knew that something big had happened. In fact, they called one of the rivers Quicksand River because the geography of it all was still choking underneath an eruption that happened 2 decades prior. So I hope that I painted a little bit of the destructive qualities that we can expect when Mount Hood does eventually erupt. Which leads us to another question though. Mount Hood is obviously one of the most pristine and iconic parts of Oregon. Why isn't it a national park? To answer that question, unfortunately for me, we gotta head all the way back up to the mountain again. And of course, before we leave, I have to do a water check because it's what we do. Just see how cold it is, you know? Ooh, whew. I see some people swimming already, and I can't say I blame them. Though it is chilly. All right, let's go. All right, so I just arrived to one of our final destinations, and that is Trillium Lake, which I think I can get to from over here. Oh man, this is gonna be cool. This is one of the most picturesque Pacific Northwest views you're gonna find basically anywhere in the world. We're gonna explore a little bit around here and then talk a little bit more about Mount Hood. The Columbia River is absolutely massive, but you know what else is massive? Well, Mount Hood for one, but also my brand new geography community, thebite.co. And this is your one and only call out to go join and support human-made geography content because it's becoming quite rare these days and I am 100% real. So I'll see you guys there. So there's always one big question about Mount Hood every time anybody comes and visits. Why isn't this a national park? I mean, after all, this is absolutely stunning, right? And so after seeing the power and destructive nature and the beauty of Mount Hood, early conservationists in the 1920s and 30s desperately tried to turn it into a national park. Like they actually tried it. And at the time, many people thought it was gonna happen because it was kind of a no-brainer. And if they had succeeded, the federal government would have drawn a massive line around Mount Hood and everything would be perfectly protected. This also would have made it illegal to build towns and settlements and almost anything right here within Mount Hood National Forest. But unfortunately, Congress rejected it. While it might have seemed like a no-brainer, there was actually a lot of local opposition to a national park here because people wanted to have access to all of the old growth forests. They wanted to build what they wanted to do. And of course, the lumber companies wanted to harvest a lot of the lumber. Instead of becoming a national park, which would have stopped growth and protected the land, it became a national forest, which means it's open for resource extraction and recreation in ways that a national park really wouldn't be able to. And this has led to things like the clear cutting of trees. In fact, since World War II, thousands of acres of this forest have been clear cut already. So the local opposition won the battle, but they also completely ignored the geography. By rejecting the national park, they accidentally left the door wide open for developers to start paving almost anything, including the river valleys and even places like Trillium Lake, which, while very nice, is very paved over. Now, there is of course a lot to see around Trillium Lake, and I wish I could show all of it to you guys. In order to continue our story, we want to keep heading down the mountain because ultimately, that's where the Lahar flows, downhill. But here's the thing. When Lewis and Clark saw the destruction, this valley was largely empty. There were likely some tribal settlements, but they would be sporadic at best. The population density of the time just wasn't anything near what it is today. And of course, today we've built highways, bridges, and entire suburban complexes directly inside the old Maid Lahars footprint. In fact, we have a town about 15 miles west of here called Sandy, named for the fact that it sits on the Sandy River. And that town will be completely bulldozed whenever Mount Hood eventually erupts. Basically, we looked at a valley that was violently carved by a volcano, with all of that volcanic concrete rushing down. And we decided it was a great place to house nearly 13,000 people. And that's not even including all of the other small towns that dot this mountain, like the one I'm in right now, Zigzag. It is, for lack of a better term, a very dangerous place to live if that mountain ever erupts. But we got to bring this full circle, so let's head back to where this episode started. And this is it. We have officially come full circle back to where we started this morning. I have been up and down and all around Mount Hood for about 7 hours today. It is easily my favorite mountain in the world. It is, as I always say, the best mountain that ever mountained. Still, we are incredibly lucky that it hasn't erupted yet. It's been almost 250 years since the last eruption, and if we're lucky, there'll be another 250 years. There is one final thing I want to talk about though, because we were talking about those glaciers so much. If climate change keeps going the way it's going, this whole Lahar problem might not even be a problem in a few decades, meaning that there won't be any glaciers up top, and therefore all that water and moisture that'll pick up all of the debris that'll come down to these river valleys and crush everything below it simply won't exist. It'll just be magma and ash. And that is of course dangerous, but not nearly as dangerous as a Lahar. That's not me being in support of climate change, but it's just one of those weird things that could save us something. I don't know. This has been really fun exploring Mount Hood. I hope you guys enjoyed this solo adventure. I really missed having Alexa. As usual, come back next week for another geographic adventure. I'll lose my hat, man. But, whoa. Fun fact about the Sandy River, if you're a big kayaker, whoa, almost slipped there.
Sweeks.
Gotta love those stupid shots. See you there.